Hello everyone, welcome to Study IQ English. Let me begin this video by asking you two questions. One, is Ukraine a part of NATO? Second, is Ukraine a member of the European Union? Do let me know in the comment box. This is quite a relevant question because right now we are looking at a fragmentation that's happening within the 27-member European Union itself. Well, what has happened? All is happening in the backlight of Russia-Ukraine war that has been raging now incessantly since 2022. What has happened today? Well, Hungary has given a warning. It said that it will not allow the 90 billion euro loan of European Union to be given to Ukraine. And Hungary says, I will use my veto. I will block this loan at any cost. But why is Hungary angry with Ukraine? The real reason is the oil supply through the Druzhba pipeline. Hungary says if the oil supply through Druzhba pipeline does not start again and countries like Hungary and Slovakia do not start getting oil supply from Russia, then no more support, no more oil to Ukraine, because very recently it was the drones from Ukraine which had hit upon the oil facility of the Druzhba pipeline in Russia. And this has raised so many questions now among the EU nations who deeply depend on Russian oil. Now you might be wondering that it was President Trump and it was European Union who together had imposed sanctions on Russia. In fact, that's the reason why the price of Russian oil fell by rupees 3 to rupees 7 per barrel. Today then, why is European Union busy in importing Russian oil? Well, that's because sanctions are always a paper reality, but majority of these European nations are still importing not just oil but also refined petroleum products from Russia. In fact, there are certain countries who have been given a slight waiver. They have been given a temporary permit to continue their Russian oil import even when Europe and US together want to stop Russia. Together, they want to put sanctions on Russia, but still, behind all this wall of sanction, the oil import continues. Well, that's what you can call global diplomacy. And today, there are so many countries of Europe, such as Hungary, Slovakia, you have Poland, you have Lithuania, Romania, even countries like, for that matter, Estonia and Germany itself, the top country, the top economy of EU, which continues to use Russian petroleum products. Now, if the Druzhba pipeline is cut, if it's damaged from Russia, that means no more oil coming to these European countries. After all, it's a matter of energy security. And energy security is the most important factor in a country's foreign policy, that we know. So let's talk about the pipeline. Let's talk about what has happened. So we know that Druzhba pipeline is one of the world's longest oil pipelines. Why? Because it carries Russian crude. Now, what is Russian crude? Russian crude is the Ural crude. The oil that comes from the Ural mountain, agreed that it's quite a sour oil. It has a high content of sulfur, but it is still better than the kind of oil that US is pushing on India from Venezuela. And then I told you that top importers of this oil, whether it was India at some point or China today or say Turkey or other countries like these Eastern Europe countries, they have their oil refineries who are perfectly adapted to using Ural oil. So it is this Ural oil from Russia which comes through this pipeline Druzhba and it goes all the way into Central Europe. Now here in the map you can have a brief look at the pipeline itself, beginning somewhere here in Russia and then flowing all the way into Eastern Europe as well as up to nations like Germany. It carries oil of about 4,000 kilometers length area. So that's the extent of the pipeline connecting eastern part of European Russia to various other connectivities in Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic. Most surprising, Germany itself. But we all understand the geography of this area. In fact, if you have taken the Hindu classes with me, you might be also aware of the buffer border between Europe and Russia. And at the buffer is Ukraine. Ukraine is that country. You should also know all the countries in the border between Ukraine and Russia. You all understand today the major battle between Russia and Ukraine is over Donbas area. Why? Because after the 2014 capturing of Crimea, today Russia is making incursions in Donbas. Ukraine is worried. Donbass is an area rich in coal. It means coal basin. If Donbass goes away, Ukraine's industrial power goes away too. But Russia says, I need it at any cost. Today, if Donbass is gone, you never know, tomorrow Russia may also start putting claims over places like Zaporizhia, Kherson and all these. So that's why Ukraine is worried. But Ukraine has a buffer state position. So this Druzhba pipeline has to pass from Ukraine before it enters Europe. And when Ukraine threw a drone and attacked this pipeline, what happened then? Naturally, the oil flow from Druzhba also stopped. Once the oil flow stopped because pipeline got damaged, not only is Russia deeply offended, but it will take time for the pipeline to get repaired. What will happen to these countries? I just spoke about Romania. I spoke about Hungary. We have just seen the dependence of Czech Republic, Slovakia. All of this is passing from Ukraine, remember. And these countries will face massive oil shortage. Remember, this is coming at a time when European Union is also inch by inch losing faith in President Trump. Now, there used to be a point of time where US was a major security military provider for Ukraine, for European Union, NATO countries. But today what happened? Dynamics are changing. President Trump wants to capture Greenland. By making this claim, he has deeply offended Denmark. Now, Denmark, a founding member of NATO itself, all the NATO countries are busy focusing on Arctic security. They know that US will not provide security guarantee to us or to Ukraine. In fact, there could be a future tussle over the ownership of Greenland. So, European Union is also lost there. Many countries find no point in fighting over oil supply from Russia, and hence Hungary has clearly said that Ukraine is delaying the oil supply pipeline restoration, and Hungary's economy depends on this oil. And similarly, Slovakia's economy too. Lithuania and Poland and Romania, many more countries are equally dependent, and therefore these countries are threatening back. If our energy security is challenged, we will also not give you any financial support. Then what happens to Ukraine? President Trump already said once upon a time, about few weeks before, that I don't care. Ukraine wants to surrender Donbass, go ahead, do it. I'm not going to give you military help anymore. Now, if Europe and countries like Hungary and Slovakia also step away from financing Ukraine, for Ukraine it's a lost battle against Russia. So what will Ukraine do? Repair the pipeline, allow the oil to flow, or still hold on and negotiate with these countries? That's the whole issue about. Hungary's foreign minister says this is like an economic blackmail that's going on here. And what is this European Union loan all about? Well, this 90 billion euro loan is to support Ukraine's military needs. It is to support economic stability and war efforts in Ukraine. Why? Because since 2022, the war with Russia has raged on without a stop. Okay, and still there is no scope of any peace in this area. Now, looking at Hungary's special position, Hungary is considered a pro-Russian country within the US for a very long time now. Other European Union partners say Hungary already supports Russia. Hungary has throughout said, let us not impose very strict sanctions on Russia because of oil security. And most other European Union countries, although were busy in reducing Russian imports, countries like Hungary and Slovakia continued. In fact, they were given some special permission also to continue these imports because of the heavy dependence that they have. And now, as Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Hungary even did not stop then. Hungary continued its oil imports. Then today, why will Hungary negotiate? Well, not at all. And that's the controversy all about. And where does Slovakia come in the picture? Slovakia too depends on Russian oil. Temporarily, Slovakia has also been given an exemption. It can continue buying some oil from Russia despite the EU and US ban on it. But then, eventually, even Slovakia is threatening to stop electricity supply to Ukraine if the Druzhba pipeline is not repaired. So you see how global politics, how foreign policies are all entered around energy. Now, something similar is what we are experiencing too. Today, as US Supreme Court SCOTUS has rebuked President Trump over misuse of tariff, India has a hope as well. Can we go back to importing Russian oil? Well, that's a question we are all living with right now. And you practice this quick question here. With reference to recent dispute between Hungary and European Union over aid and support to Ukraine, look at these statements. 1. The Druzhba pipeline transports Russian crude through Central Asia and via the Ukrainian territory. Second, Hungary has completely stopped importing Russian oil since the beginning of Russia-Ukraine war in 22. And three, Hungary and Slovakia were granted temporary exemptions from European Union's ban on Russian oil import. Which of these statements do you think are correct? For clarity and many more other such issues, you can join our Telegram channel. The QR code is right here. And do remember, right now at StudyIQ, we are celebrating a mega sale. A flat 50% off limited period offer on both 27 and 2028 batches. And if you use my code SPLIVE, then further discount on an existing humble price that we are offering. But remember that this power play sale is a limited period offer. So enroll today and guarantee your success with us. Thank you.